Okay, guys, Project Give It Away is coming out of the ground today. This team has been meeting and then praying and doing research and kind of communication through email. Scott Mann is heading it up. He's one of our elders. So, Scott, I'm going to turn it over to you, man. Take it.
All right. Well, welcome to Project Give It Away. If you don't know what that is, from the description above, it is a new way. It's brand new for our church to utilize end-of-year giving. And we're going to take 100%. None of it stays here. 100% or it's going to go out to 7 charities. Now, part of what you saw up there in the planning stages was us whittling down, filtering out the dozens, thank you, dozens of suggestions that came from you guys about what charities we should give to. So it wasn't easy. It was a difficult process, actually, to whittle these down. But that's what we're doing. We want to give this away, that we're going to help people show God's love into their lives, maybe change their lives, and in the process, we might change our lives as well. So let's talk a little bit. I'll introduce the team here. Standing next to me is Jeffrey Chapman. Now, Jeffrey hasn't been here very long. I got to know him a little bit, well, more than a little bit. We roomed together at the men's retreat recently, so we got to know each other pretty well. If you don't know Jeffrey Chapman, you want to know Jeffrey Chapman. This guy is sharp. I count him as a friend. I feel lucky to do that. So, Jeffrey, we gave you something through Samaritan's Purse called Operation Heal Our Patriots. Would you talk to that a bit?
Yes, thank you, Scott. Good morning, Vision. Before I go into Operation Heal Our Patriots, I'll tell you a little bit about them. How many of you have encountered a service person, as you're going about your day, and you felt an overwhelming desire to express your thanks to them? I mean, it's just a heartwarming time that's taking place when you see them, and you just express how much you appreciate their service to our country. Well, with Operation Heal Our Patriots, it really does. It gives us an opportunity to go further than just a handshake and telling them thank you. What it does is when we give to support this organization, what it does is it helps the wounded veterans and their spouses. It gives them the opportunity for spiritual refreshment, physical renewal, and marriage enrichment. Not only does it do all of that, but even after they've completed their stay, it still reaches out and supports them. And so it was very exciting for me to talk about them, and it was very exciting being a part of the team to discuss what we are doing. I think we're in a great place today when we really fulfill the purpose of God in the earth by giving and supporting the different charitable organizations that we have in our communities.
Definitely.
All right. Thank you, Jeffrey. Next in our lineup, as you can see, we have quite a cross-section of our church here. We brought a teen on board with us, and his name is Austin Kepley. And Austin and I are brothers, and not by blood, and not just spiritually, but we're brothers in the sense that we are both pediatric cancer survivors. So I want Austin to talk to you today about a chosen charity called Cancer Services of Gaston County.
Since 1977, Cancer Services of Gaston County has strived to provide personal and compassionate cancer support, education, and prevention services to Gaston County residents. They work diligently to improve the quality of life in their clients and the health of our community. All of their services are free of charge, and as a survivor of cancer myself, this is very important to me, as I know how difficult the experience can be, not only for patients, but the family as well. So I think it is very important to give back to them since they have already given so much to us.
Thanks, Austin. And some of those words in there just really pierce my heart as well, thinking back on my own experience. It helps the families. It helps the patients as well. And it is a difficult time, and those services are critical to those families. So, next down the line, a new friend of mine. She hasn't been here very long either, Donna Klutz. And she's the kind of lady, she showed up here, and she just jumped in with both feet. So, and I dig that about her. That's the kind of person I am. So I want Donna... she's taken a big role on this team, and I want you to talk about two of the charities today. One of them is Gaston Hospice, And the other one I want you to talk about is some place called Catherine's House. So if you would.
I just want to say that it has been an honor and a privilege for me to be on this team, and that I just see giving as pure joy. And I believe that God blesses every cent that we give, and He just gives you joy with every cent you give, whether it's $1 in a Salvation Army kettle or it's a bigger gift. I just think it's pure joy. And the first agency that I talked to was Gaston Hospice, and both the people that I talked to there and at Catherine's House, I came away with the feeling that they had so much love and compassion for the people that they serve. And we have a wonderful hospice here in Gaston County. And what hospice does, if you haven't had any experience with that, is that they care for people who have a life-limiting illness that is not responding to treatment. So their goal is to help people to live in their home as long as possible, to keep them out of a hospital. They put the patient and the family at the center of the care planning. A couple of years ago, they saw a need to provide a place where people can go when they need short-term care, when their symptoms aren't responding to the care that they can get in the home. So this is called Robin Johnson House. They have 19 beds, and it's located in Dallas. There's some beautiful pictures on their website of this facility. And this is an alternative to hospitalization for many families. When we spoke, there is a great need with hospice, and especially Robin Johnson House, to supplement the funds that many families have or don't have. So people who have no insurance or Medicaid or Medicare, this supplements the cost to that family. The other agency I talked to was Catherine's House, and they've been around for about 25 years. They're an outreach of the Sisters of Mercy in Belmont. You might be familiar with their other agency, which is Holy Angels, also in Belmont. Catherine's House serves women who have become homeless for a variety of circumstances, and that might be that they have been in domestic violence, that they are underemployed, there's a lack of affordable housing, or an unexpected tragedy. These women come from all walks of life, and at any point in time, they can house 14 women and 10 children. They usually stay from anywhere from 4 to 6 months, and the staff works with them to develop life skills so that they can cope and be successful when they get back out on their own. One of their biggest needs is to help women with the things that they need to set up a new household. But I just got such pleasure out of talking to both of them and that joy that they shared.
All right, thanks, Donna. You can sense the joy of giving in Donna. That's one of the things that she's kind of the cheerleader on our team here. She gets us fired up all the time. So, and next down the line is Cassidy Schrader, and Cassidy and I are friends. I hesitate to say friends because I'm so much older than you. I'm more like your weird uncle, right? And we've spent time in Trailblazer together. We've been to camp together. I was there when you got baptized. I've seen her perform on stage before. This is a talented, beautiful, intelligent young lady, and I like those things about her, but the things I like the most about her is Cassidy is pure of heart. She has pure motives. And so I would like a child today to talk to us about an agency that helps children. It's Least of These Carolinas. Cassidy, would you talk?
Okay. The Least of These Carolinas helps kids that can't be with their parents feel more comfortable in their new homes.
And what do they, so how do they help the kids feel more comfortable in these new homes? Because they might be going in with strangers, possibly, usually with strangers. What does Least of These do for those kids?
They give them bags, and they help bags to carry some stuff that they had in their old home and help them feel more comfortable with the stuff they already have at new homes.
Right. As kids go into these strange places, what are some of the emotions they might be feeling?
They might be scared, or they might feel uncomfortable with their new home.
Right.
And these bags could help them feel more comfortable.
There you go. They get to take a little piece with them, right? That's their one little, because they're going into a new bedroom, maybe sharing a bedroom. They have that least of these helps hone out a little piece of home for them to maybe to ease those fears as they go from possibly house to house. All right, thanks, Cassidy. And then last but not least, we have Jacqueline Morton down there. She's been around Vision for a long time. She's part of one of our favorite families around here. And I would say that if you have a team, Jacqueline's somebody you want on the team. She is a very sharp lady, and it's a pleasure to work with you on this. 2 groups from you as well. We have On Eagle's Wings, which isn't really described in the title there. You'll have to describe that to us. On Eagle's Wings Ministries. And then one that probably most of you heard about is Habitat for Humanity, Gaston.
So I'm going to start by saying thank you, because I have also been impacted by the generosity of this church. And I think we all would agree that when we give, we receive tenfold. So I think that's something to remember as we go into this giving season, but year-round also. So to elaborate on those 2 ministries, I'll start with On Eagle's Wings. As some of you know, Charlotte is one of the biggest hubs for sex trafficking in the country. And On Eagle's Wings Ministries, their mission is to combat that, not only to assist those who are still trapped in sex trafficking, but also to empower those that have escaped from that. So your giving to On Eagle's Wings will not only impact those women, help their futures be brighter and for them to be empowered, but also for their families that maybe nationally or internationally that they've been apart from for so long. And then next, Habitat for Humanity of Gaston County. I'm sure you're all probably aware of Habitat for Humanity and what they do, but just a little more information. They are a nonprofit Christian organization that helps build homes for those that may not be able to afford them or who may be in homeless shelters otherwise. Those mortgage payments are 0% interest, and the payments that are received go back into building homes for other people in the community. And in addition to that, they have the Restore that is on Franklin. You can go and shop and also donate items. So all of those ministries that we've talked about are going to be greatly impacted by your giving. So thank you.
All right, thanks, Jacqueline. Now, when you heard these people talk about these charities, you might have kind of gauged some of these are local, some of these have national reach, some of these have international reach as far as like On Eagle's Wings and things like that. So this is a broad section of charities that were filtered down by these fine folks here. And here is our plan of action. Are you ready? From now to December 31st, the end of the year, is all the giving. Anything that comes in to Project Give It Away between now and then, 100% will go to these 7 charities. Then on the first Wednesday in January, we'll reconvene and we will allocate these funds. And this won't go out. This isn't just divided up between the tens of thousands of funds that will be coming in, right? Right? I'm thinking about, right? Maybe thousands, maybe tens of thousands, but it won't just go evenly. We'll make sure that it's strategic and that it is very specific. And when I say that, I mean like we might go to a charity and we'll say, "What's your biggest need? Do you need maybe they need a stove. All right, here's the check for that. We're giving them the stove." Or if it's a bed, or if it's a specific family. So we want to be very strategic in how these funds go out to have the biggest impact in our community. Now, after we do that on the first Wednesday, then January 3rd through the 5th is the fun. We get to go out to give it away, right? So we're going to take those funds. We're going to go to these charities. We'll give this away, and we're taking a camera with us because we're Vision. We take a camera everywhere we go, and that's for us, but mostly it's for you, so that on Sunday, January 6th, we're coming back here on stage, and we're going to have a party. We're going to have a celebration. We're going to have a finale that you're not going to want to miss, because God is going to be there in this room, is going to show you how God worked through you to help these people. All right, help these charities. So if you don't know it, Vision Church has a history of giving. You have a reputation for generosity in the community. We have given to schools, to grandmothers, to groups that have come through. We've given to families. We've given to strangers that have through one of our giving projects. We have given. What have we given? We have given time. We've given money. We've given muscles. Just ask our moving team, right? We've given muscles. We gave away water bottles, right? Sean's back there, yes. We're giving away thousands of water bottles to strangers. And this time, it's money. And so between now and December 31st, those funds have to come in. After January 6th, that finale, we're putting this out there. We're putting it on the internet. It's going on Facebook because we want just the spark to be lit here at Vision, but we want a fire to catch in our community. We want this to go out to other groups to get a hold of this, to other churches to get a hold of this idea, and so that we can really make a mark in our community. Now, when this happens, and I know that I can count on you guys. I know I can count on Vision people to light this fire. And we are going to touch kids. We're going to touch moms. We're going to touch dads. We're going to touch veterans. We're going to touch churches. We're going to touch whole communities. And we're going to show them God's love. Right on? But it's up to us. It's up to us. This is only going to be as great as we make it. Thank you, guys. I love you.
All right,
let's hear it for
let's hear it for
Project
the team,
Everywhere.
guys. All right, let's hear it for them. Thanks, guys. Okay, Vision. Well, if you know me, or if you're new here at Vision, definitely my heart is for generosity. I love that we have created a culture here at our church of generosity. I love that God brings us people like this team that says, let's be generous. I mean, like you got to meet Donna for the first time. When I contacted Donna about this team, and she lit up, she's like, that's my number one spiritual gift. I love getting involved in giving. I want to be a part of this. This is what God is stirring in our church, and I can't wait to see what he's going to do. So definitely you'll hear about it each week leading up, and it's between you and God. What you're going to give, what you're going to do, and it all goes to that project. Now, let's jump in to this new series, Encounters. Okay, so let me ask you a question. By raising hands, raise your hand if you've ever met anybody famous. Kind of like one-on-one or in a little small group of people, famous. Okay, pretty good amount, okay. Let me tell you about this moment I had back in 1993, and I'm seeing the Carolina sweatshirt right here. So are there any North Carolina Tar Heel fans in here? So I got some good news and bad news. The good news is they won the championship that year, 93. The bad news is they lost to my Wolverines this last Wednesday, in case you noticed. But anyway, thank you. Yes. But anyways, back in 93, they had won the championship, and that next December, they came to the old Coliseum for a two-night basketball tournament. If you remember, they always had 2 nights back-to-back in December where they'd come and play. And when I was at UNC Charlotte in the athletic training department, I had this cool job. Man, it was great. I came to the games, and I would basically just man the athletic training room in case they needed anything. During the game, I would sit on press row, so literally front row watching the Heels play. And then during all the halftime and between games, I'd go in the training room in case they needed anything. Well, on the Friday night of that tournament, the first game was playing. Excuse me. I'm still trying to find a good doctor that can help me out with this cough. No, I'm just kidding. But seriously, they're playing the first game of the night, and Tar Heels in the second game. So at halftime of the first game, I go back in the training room. I'm hanging out in there in case those teams need anything. And the doors open up, and if you're a Tar Heel fan, you'll remember that year, Jerry Stackhouse and Rasheed Wallace were freshmen, and Eric Montross was an upperclassman. These 3 guys come walk in the training room. I'm like, sweet, man. I'm meeting these guys. These are definitely NBA future stars. This is amazing. They come walking in. They walk out. Then comes Bill Guthridge, Phil Ford, and Dean Smith. I'm like, oh, yeah. And these guys walk in, the coaches, and go and sit in this room where there's a big screen TV. They sit down to watch the second half of the first game. So I walk in like, hey, guys, need anything? They're like, nope. I said, well, I'm going to sit down with you in case you need anything. They're like, great. So after a couple minutes, Phil Ford gets up and leaves, and then Bill Guthridge gets up and leaves, and it dawns on me that I'm sitting there by myself with Dean Smith. Now, if you don't know Dean Smith, when he retired, he had the most wins ever in men's college basketball. He won 2 national championships, went to multiple Final Fours. Incredible basketball hero, if you will. I'm sitting there one-on-one with him, having an encounter with Dean Smith, I guess you would say, except that as a college, I guess I was a sophomore at that time, I didn't know what to say. I didn't want to embarrass myself. I didn't want to sound stupid. I didn't want to sound, So I just asked him a couple little questions, nothing meaningful, and after a couple minutes, he left. Honestly, pretty rotten encounter. I mean, you think I had that moment with Dean Smith, and that encounter really was so shallow. Now, for 4 weeks, though, we're talking about the chance we have to encounter God in a way that is deep and rich and meaningful. Now, if you're old school, you might think we're talking about Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Anybody remember that movie? Movie show? That's weird. That's a weird show. I don't know. Then how about Animal Encounters? Anybody ever like watch on what, Animal Planet or something? Animal Encounters. We love animals at our house. Animal Encounters. Now, there's also a show that actually, to me, kind of sparked this series. Back in the spring, we were watching this show called The Encounter, and it's actually on PureFlix. If you've never been on there, this is a kind of like a Netflix, but it's more like Christian-based shows and movies. And this show, The Encounter, it's like a, I don't know, 5 or 6 week show they had, and you can get PureFlix for free for a month. This is the way to do it. You get the 1 month free trial membership, and then you watch this show. And honestly, this show was basically on this premise that Jesus just shows up in your day. You might be in a restaurant, and a situation happens where there's a need or there's an opportunity to talk to somebody, and you either capitalize on the moment or you miss it. Or maybe you're down and you think, man, I'm so alone, I need some help, and sit down with somebody, totally ignore them, don't even talk to them. You're like, oh, wait a second. Not Jesus himself, but maybe Jesus sent that person. Maybe it's an angel, maybe God's Spirit, that you have a chance in your day to encounter God. So man, I want to know about that. I want to tap into that, because if you're like me, there's some days where you just kind of, honestly, you treat God like Dean Smith in that room, and you don't know what to say, and there's not really much in that conversation, and poof, it's gone. And before you know it, it really wasn't much of an encounter. It was just kind of like two ships passing in the night, and you're like, God, where were you today? And God says, I was there. You just missed me. Well, I don't want to miss him. I want to encounter him. Now, if you got your takeaway card, pull it out. Or if you're watching on Facebook Live, I want you commenting, telling us what you're learning, and then definitely to be here in person next week. And especially, I'm going to give a little shout out to Katie Bowling, watching at home today sick. I love Miss Katie. I know she's sick. So Katie, everybody wave to Katie, wherever you want to wave. There we go. Cool. Okay, so you got your takeaway card. Let's talk first really about why we miss encounters with God. Why we miss encounters with God. Because I think we all have this similarity that at times we miss encounters with God. First thing is we get too busy. So say too busy. Okay, anybody with me on that one? You ever get too busy? We're being real. Okay, sometimes we say we're too busy, we miss an encounter with God. Second thing is we get apathetic or disinterested. We say, that really doesn't interest me to meet with God. So say apathetic. Okay, if you've ever been there, you're like, yeah, some days, Pastor Matt, I'm there. I'm just not interested in encountering God. Third thing I think is there's disbelief. Sometimes some people say, man, God's not real, or meeting with him isn't possible. I can't do that. So say disbelief. Sometimes that's us. Fourth thing, we get unaware or uneducated. I hear this from people all the time. They say, what? Really? God wants to meet with me? I was not aware that God had an interest in meeting with me besides trying to pound me for all the things I did wrong, tell me all the things I'm lacking in. No, actually, you should be aware that God wants to meet with you. So say unaware. Okay, because we're going to break these things down. And the fifth thing is maybe we get mad at God. So say mad at God. Anybody ever been mad at God? Sometimes you get mad at God. Sometimes situations, circumstances drive us to a place we get mad at God, or we get disinterested, or we're just saying, God, I'm really not wanting to spend time with you today. I'm too busy. All these things come together to where we miss encounters with God. And honestly, I think that hurts God's heart. It doesn't make him mad when he looks down and he says, Tommy, goodness sake, why didn't you spend time with me this week? I think it's more like, Tommy, why didn't you spend time with me this week? Our God, he wants us to encounter him. Now, I'm going to ask you to consider trying something different this week. I'm going to ask you to consider taking a 5-minute detour. That sometime in your week, hopefully sometime in each day, you would take a 5-minute detour, spend time with God. Because many of us, our days are blocked out from here to here, drive here to here, work here to here, pick up here to here, drop it here to here, cook here to here, clean here to here, go to bed. And there's no time for God. So what if we just tried to take a 5-minute detour? What if you were convinced by the end of this, saying, okay, Matt, I want to try to spend time with God. God is interested in me encountering him this week. I'll take a 5-minute detour. So if, say, Bill's got a meeting at 2 o'clock, He says, okay, instead of showing up, 5 minutes early, I'm going to show up 10 minutes early, and I'm going to sit in the parking lot for 5 minutes before I go in. And you're like, oh, I'm too busy to do that. I'm too whatever. No, actually, usually we're not. Usually we're not too busy. It's just a matter of prioritizing to where you'd say, I'm going to try taking a 5-minute detour, and actually when I go to pick up the kids from school, I'm going to get there even 5 minutes earlier and sit in the line 5 minutes longer. And in that 5 minutes, I'm not going to listen to the radio or check Facebook or do whatever. I am going to try to encounter God. I'm going to set my alarm 5 minutes earlier, or I'm going to, before going to bed, I'm going to stop 5 minutes and go sit over here, or during my busy day working, I'm actually going to step outside and go outside my building without my phone for 5 minutes to take a 5-minute detour. Just to see, would God show up? Just to see, would God be interested in an encounter with me? Now, the story we're looking at today comes from the book of Exodus, a guy that even if you're new to church, you have probably heard of him. His name's Moses. Nationwide, people know at least a little bit about Moses, but this guy Moses, he had an encounter with God that we can learn from. Again, if you're new to church, you're like, man, I don't know about that Bible, if I'm believing it. Hey, at least listen to the story and consider what Moses went through and his detour. And what was the result of his detour? And how maybe you can take a detour because Moses encountered a burning bush. So say burning bush. Okay, that's strange. I mean, really, think about it. He saw, first of all, a bush, then it was on fire, and we're going to see in the story that it just kept burning and burning and burning. God was trying to get his attention like God wants to get your attention every day. If only for a 5-minute detour, maybe for more than that, but at the least, God says, would you take a 5-minute detour with me? And I say, God, I want to try that. I want to try that. Because the story in Exodus, it's packaged around this backstory where the Israelites, the people of God, were oppressed, they were in slavery. It was terrible times. In fact, the Egyptians were so mad at them that they wanted to contain their population that when babies were born, if it was a boy, they killed them. In fact, they would take them and throw them in the river. Boom, they're gone. Anybody here got any baby boys ever had in their house? We've had 2. When I think about that, that is terrifying. This is what was happening. They were looking for help. They were looking for somebody to fix this. Moses gets born. He's a baby boy. What should have happened is he gets tossed in that river. Instead, his mom, who believed in God, said, okay, God, I think you've got something special for my son, takes Moses, puts him in a basket, puts him in a basket, puts him in the river, and by faith, pushes him out, says, God, you got some plans for him. What's going to happen? It's a miracle. Pharaoh's daughter finds him. I want you to read this week in Exodus 2. Pharaoh's daughter finds him, takes him in, and through a turn of events says, I need somebody to care for this boy. They find Moses' mom, brings her in. Moses' mom gets to care for her own son, raises him up as truly a miracle baby, takes us into Exodus 3. Beyond Exodus 3, what we see happen, all kind of crazy things. We got staff, Bill stick, turn into snakes. We got Moses' hand going leprous and then coming back healed, leprous, healed again. We see plagues happen through chapters, all these crazy things with frogs and gnats and blood, crazy things. The Passover where the death angel comes. Say, this is reality TV at its best. If you have never read Exodus 1 all the way through Exodus 13, Moses leads the people out of Egypt through the Red Sea, said, I want to be a part of something like that. I want to see amazing things happen. We go back to Exodus 3. This guy Moses, we pick up his story. Take a look. It says Moses was tending the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the far side of the wilderness and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. There the angel of the Lord appeared to him in flames of fire from within a bush. Okay, now I got 5 observations for you about the 5-minute detour that you can take and apply into your life for your 5-minute detour. First observation, we have to have the desire for a burning bush experience. So say desire. Say desire like you mean it. Desire. Okay, God's like, I want some people with desire. God said, I don't want somebody who's just, okay, God, I'll try the 5-minute detour. No, God wants somebody who says, God, I'm looking for a burning bush. I at least believe there could be one out there. There could be something if we meet for a 5-minute detour. Moses had the desire, and we also see observation number 2, put yourself in a position to find a burning bush. So say position. So here's Moses. He's got this desire. He puts himself in position. This is where your story has to start this week. Because if you hear this, you walk out today thinking, man, I do want to encounter God in a more personal and powerful way. And I promise you, there doesn't need to be anything special about you. There's nothing special about me. God wants to do it with each of us this week. You get some desire and you start looking for it. You are on the road to meeting God in your 5-minute detour. Now, if you remember back early this year, we went to study The Life You've Always Wanted. This guy, John Ortberg, one of the most profound statements that I've ever heard about truly connecting with God. He says we need to ruthlessly eliminate hurry from our life. Ruthlessly. You know, ruthlessly is a strange word because it's like you see something and you go after it no matter what it takes. Ortberg says, guys, we have to ruthlessly eliminate hurry in our life if we want to have an encounter with God. So we've got the desire, we put ourselves in a position. Well, the story continues. It says Moses saw that though the bush was on fire, it did not burn up. So Moses thought, I'm going to go over and see this. This is a strange sight. Why the bush does not burn up. So the third observation is we have to notice the burning bush. So say notice. Okay, got that desire. Got to put ourselves in a position and we have to notice it. And this isn't like I kind of notice the potential 5-minute detour and I keep going. No, you have to notice it and stop. Now look, at the end of the message today, I've got 4 different brief short stories about how God shows up in weird kind of burning bushes. So don't you think that you're not qualified to connect with God in a burning bush? You are if you have a desire, if you put yourself in position, and if you stop, there's a burning bush, you say, okay, I see it. I'm going to stop. What's going on here? Verse 4 says, when the Lord saw that Moses had gone over to look, God called to him from within the bush, and he said, John. He said, John. He said, Doug. He said, Terry. He said, Terry. I mean, he's going to say that to you. If you look for a 5-minute detour this week, I'm telling you, he's going to say, hey, Mario. And that's your chance to whether you're going to be, no, apathetic, disinterested, don't believe, too busy. When you look back and say, God, I'm here. So Moses says, I'm here. God says, don't come any closer. Take off your sandals. For the place where you're standing is holy ground, so don't miss this. Wherever your 5-minute detour is this week, if it's sitting in a minivan, in the pickup line, for 5 minutes, that is your detour, that's your holy ground. If it's going out in your front porch because there's nuts inside the house, you say, God, I got to get outside, and here's my 5-minute detour, you go sit in those front steps, that's your holy ground. You walk around your neighborhood, that's your holy ground. If you have the heart of expectancy of God being there in your 5-minute detour, that's your holy ground. This was Moses' holy ground. He said, I'm the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. And at this, Moses did what we should do, say, oh my goodness, man, God is here in this moment. He is here. You know that song we sing about, God is in this place? You in that minivan, in that pickup line can literally say, God is in this place. This is holy ground. I had better be humble. I better be in awe in this detour. It says Moses hid his face because he was afraid to look at God. Lord said, I have indeed seen the misery of my people. Now don't miss this in verse 7 and 8. God is putting the pieces together of how he is going to work in your life if you catch this detour. The Lord said, I have indeed seen the misery of my people in Egypt. I've heard them crying out because of their slave drivers. I'm concerned about their suffering. And you're saying, yeah, I got suffering I want to talk to God about. I got stress I want to talk to God about. God will listen. He will listen and meet you there. So I've come down to rescue them from the hand of the Egyptians and to bring them up out of that land into a good and spacious land, a land flowing with milk and honey. Okay, so get this. So God makes it clear. Here are your next three blanks. He makes it clear, three things. He makes it clear, number one, that he knows. Because you see in verse 7, he says, I have indeed seen the misery. I've seen it. So in your 5-minute detour, when you sit there with God, say, God, I am so stressed. I can't sleep at night. God will say, I know. I know. This won't be news to him, and you'll see it, you'll sense in him a heart of love and compassion for your Heavenly Father. He makes it clear, number two, that he cares, because you see, he says, look, I am concerned about their suffering. This isn't an indifferent God, a cold, distant God. This is a God who knows. This is a God who cares. He's meeting you in your detour. The third thing is, God will respond. You say, man, I hope so, because God, if you know and you care, man, I want you to do something. God did something. God says, I have come down to rescue them. Guys, understand, this rescuing he's talking about is way beyond any rescuing I've ever needed. This is the throwing the babies in the Nile. This is the oppression of slavery, way beyond anything I've ever known. And God says, I know, and I care, and I'll respond. To Moses and to Andrea. To Moses and to Matt, and to Alice, and to Sandra. God says, I will do that in your detour. Well, the story continues. Verse 10. So now go. I'm sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt. But Moses said, God, who am I? Remember, this is big, powerful, mean Pharaoh. Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt? And God said, I'll be with you, Michael. I'll be with you, Lacey. I'll be with you, Carrie. God says that to you in your detour. I promise you. He'll tell you that. When you brought the people out of Egypt, you'll worship God on this mountain. And Moses said, this is just like us. But God, man, something goes wrong, or I'm not qualified, or what if I get scared? Moses said, suppose I go to the Israelites and say to them, the God of your fathers has sent me to you, and they ask me, what's his name? What shall I tell them? Isn't it just like us? I mean, we are going to try to find something wrong in God's plan, something wrong in us. I wonder if God kind of sighs in this. He's like, Matt. It's so cool. God doesn't say this and says, Matt, you tell him I'm the God who used to take care of you. Or I'm even the God who's going to take care of you in the future. He says, I am. That's present. That's past. That's future. He says, you tell him, and literally, you tell yourself, I am your God. Tell yourself that. I say, God, you're my God? He says, yes, I'm your God. In this moment, I'm your God. That's what he tells Moses. So observation number 5, you got to apply what you heard at the burning bush. You take that 5-minute detour, you hear about God, and man, really, you love me, you care about me, you're going to respond to me. Then you walk away and forget. You walk away and don't respond. Nothing changes. That's not God's fault. That's my fault. Or it's your fault. So this week, this is your chance to encounter God. We got about a month left in the year. I don't want to wait till January 1 to get close up and encounter God. I want it this month. I want it this week. You can call it your burning bush. You can call it your detour. Listen to this. A couple weeks ago, remember I talked about Paul and Silas in prison? Remember, late night, been beaten, probably hungry. They're in stocks. It's an awful situation. They praised God in that moment. God was there. That was their burning bush. He said, that's not a fun burning bush. It's not about fun. It's about encountering God. Now, listen to these. I did some research this week, and it's something when you hear people talk about the unique ways they have seen people encounter God. These stories are true. Charles Spurgeon, a hero of the faith, tells a story about one time he's preaching. People came in. One guy came in resistant. He's like, I will come in here, but I'm not listening to the message. I don't have anything for what God has to say to me. I'm going to sit here, and literally, he pushes down in his ears. He is not going to listen to the message. And during the message, a fly comes, lands on his nose. He's like, and he takes his hand off to swat it, and at that second, Spurgeon said, "He who has ears to hear, let him hear." And the guy's like, "What?" And he listens to the rest of the message and comes to Christ. You say, God can't use a fly. Yes, he can. Your burning bush can come in that moment. This other guy, he lived in a community like northwest of L.A., out there toward the beach, and he was a drug-addicted hippie that people are like, man, nobody can reach him. God can't reach him. This pastor and his wife driving down the road, they're heading up toward this guy's house. They don't know this guy. Driving down toward his house, and no joke, the muffler in their car drops out, and boom, oh, they pull over the side of the road. Like us, probably like, really, God? The muffler in my car. They walk up to this guy's house. Never met him before. Start a conversation. Through their conversation, that guy comes to Christ. And you say, really? A burning bush moment can happen by way of a muffler? Yes, God can do that. And in his last story, which I love because I'm an animal lover, this missionary tells a story of over in Africa that he was preaching at this smallish church, 100 people. This lady would come every Sunday morning, every Wednesday night, and she would bring her dog. Week after week, week after week. Well, he knew that the wife's husband was at least verbally abusive, and it turns out he was physically abusive, and he actually ended up killing the lady through his abuse. After she dies, the dog, every Sunday morning and every Wednesday night, leaves the house and is gone for a couple hours. And this abusive man's like, what is up with the dog? One Wednesday night, he follows the dog. He follows the dog into a church and sits in the back row with the dog. At the end of the message, the dog gets up and walks down the aisle and sits right in front of the altar, where evidently this dog had been conditioned to do that over weeks and years with the wife. And the husband sees this and is broken and comes down front and gives his life to Christ. Because of a dog? You say, that can't happen. Really? They said a burning bush couldn't happen. So I want you to think about this week. You see your takeaway card? You see I put it on Facebook this week, our website. I mapped out an opportunity for a 4-day encounter. Spend some time with God in the Word. I broke it down into 1 day on courage, 1 day on wisdom, 1 day on peace, 1 day on obedience. Pull your app out. Pull your Bible out. Read a verse. Talk to God about it. That's an option for your 5-minute detour. Maybe yours is a song. Maybe yours is walking and praying. I don't know. Let's go on some detours this week. We need them. Let's pray.